Welcome to Showbiz and Tell, a monthly podcast from the Georgia Entertainment Public Relations Alliance. And now, here's our podcast.
Welcome to Showbiz and Tell, the podcast where public relations professionals deliver a backstage pass to join us as we uncover secrets to success in the entertainment industry. Our special guests will share their favorite show-stopping moments, tried and true business acumen, and telltale adventure from sets, stages, screens, and concert halls. And now it's time to Showbiz and Tell. I'm Melissa Sanders.
And I'm Elise Riley.
And with us today is Todd Harris, CEO of Skillshot Media and Ghost Gaming. Todd also serves as the chair of the United States Esports Federation, NASEF, and the Atlanta Esports Alliance, and he was a co-founder of High Res Studios. Welcome, Todd.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Great to be with you guys. I'm excited.
Our podcast is called Showbiz and Tell for a reason. We're leveling up the typical show and tell concept we all grew up with to focus on conversations about how the business of entertainment works. Todd, that is an impressive list of titles. You clearly wear a lot of hats. But before we dive into that, you know that we've asked you to bring something interesting to show and tell us about to kick off today's Showbiz and Tell podcast. What do you have with you today?
All right, Elise, I'm going to reveal my prop. So what I brought today is a video game, and it's actually the first video game that we developed at the studio that Melissa mentioned, High Res Studios, that I was fortunate to co-found. And so you want me to tell you why this thing is meaningful?
Definitely.
All right. Well, this game's called Global Agenda, and it's the very first video game that we made as a studio. And so I would say it symbolizes a lot of disruption. For me personally, it was the first game. So it was me transitioning from the first half of my career, which was business to business software, not in the entertainment business, to the second half of my career, which is gaming and esports that we'll get into. And it also came at a time that was pretty disruptive for the game industry itself. We started working on this game when we first started the studio, which was way back in 2005. Wow. And this game shipped around 2010. And when it shipped, there were a few things that were happening. Number one, even though this box is a little bit of like a collector's item and we printed a small number of them, it was really distributed over online distribution. It was downloaded, and that was pretty revolutionary at the time, that you wouldn't go to a store and buy a box because it's just bits that you put in this box. So the idea of digital distribution really hit video games in the same way. Of course, now it's hit streaming of films and streaming of music, but we were very early to embrace streaming. And it's also right about the time that the gaming industry started to eclipse film in terms of total global revenue. For so long, gaming was kind of like, look at us, we make money too. And right around this time, gaming surpassed film, and now it surprises most people to learn that it's bigger than film and TV and music all put together. But again, it wasn't always that way. So it's also just an amazing game. So that's why I brought it. Big transition for myself and for the industry of video games.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, so you not only run Skillshot and Ghost, but you work with a lot of organizations. You wear a lot of hats. And I imagine it wasn't always like this. But how did that moment you just spoke about, releasing that first game, how did that impact your career? What did that signify for you? And how has that kind of shaped the journey to where you are today, being involved so much in this industry?
Yeah. So I think until you work on a game, of course, you don't know how tough it is, how complex it is. It's a lot of different skill sets that come together to make a creative product. And of course, we all see that in whatever line of work that we're doing. But I think gaming for me more than anything I've worked in, it combines the technical, because it's like a big software project, with the creative, like a big movie on top of big software, all mushed together. And so it helped me develop a lot of skills of having people from different backgrounds collaborate and ultimately produce something that's all got to be cohesive and have a consistent art direction and story and game rules. And so, and that's the sort of thing I just enjoy doing. I enjoy building communities of folks from different disciplines and kind of around a shared vision that maybe hasn't existed before. And when I got to make a game, I saw how that spoke to me, kind of played to my strengths and played to what I was passionate about. So whether I'm working on a game or these days working on an event or maybe a new property of some sort, or even the nonprofit work, it's all about just the amazing time that we live in, where you have a vision of something that doesn't exist on planet Earth, and you can manifest it and bring it into being. And video games really touch on that power, that we have as humans.
That's wonderful. I would love it if you could tell us how it feels to have such an impactful role in the gaming and esports industry, not just in Georgia, but frankly around the country. We always hear people say that they want to get into gaming. I'd love to know how you would differentiate gaming from esports. Is there a difference? And what advice do you have for those looking to break into the industry?
Yeah, well, in terms of the first part, I feel fortunate to work in the game industry. It's just a really fun place to work. It's hard work, but it's very satisfying. And in terms of gaming and esports, and then I'll talk a little bit about, kind of helping to hopefully have some legacy, in those industries. The short way to differentiate them is gaming is a massive entertainment industry, and then esports is about taking a subset of video games, not every video game, and putting the structure and sizzle of competitive play around those games. And so there's a lot of games that are very popular, that have a lot of players, that generate a lot of revenue, maybe that have movies based on the IP and characters, but they are not necessarily esports. They're not being played competitively to really try to win it, as a primary goal. So that's kind of how the two relate. Gaming is the bigger bucket, and it's about a $200 billion industry globally. And then esports is the smaller piece around competitive play and people playing it professionally. And it's a smaller industry, but it's important because it helps drive, from a marketing standpoint, an awareness standpoint, an engagement standpoint, it drives gaming. And to your question on kind of how does it feel? Well, I feel awesome that we, proud that we put some games out there. Not even this game, but follow-up games like Smite. I mean, I probably have 30 photos of people that have our Smite characters tattooed on their skin. And these are like the original creations of our artists. So that's touched someone in a very real way, where they decided to take that choice. And then what's so cool about esports is the industry, we're inventing it right now. Everyone takes for granted the structure of traditional sports like basketball. And a lot of the work that we try to do is apply that structure to esports, so it has the same positive effect on young people. So it's not just the business returns. Mm-hmm. A lot of what I and our partners do are based on how can we use gaming for good, and how can we one day have parents feel as proud of their kid winning the Georgia high school championship in a game like NBA 2K or Rocket League as they do if they won it in basketball. Not because they're going to grow up and be a pro gamer necessarily, but because they have all the benefits of engaging in team sports. And so that's really what we try to do is lead in that way.
I mean, and like other industries, like music or film, gaming also, you don't have to only be a competitive player to be part of the industry. I mean, everyone needs a CFO, everyone needs a marketing person, there's a lot of other ways to get involved in the industry, right?
100%. So we often say that in the same way, the LeBron James of basketball, it's going to be the 1% of the 1%, but there's so many people that work in sports. And as you know, in entertainment, when it comes to the film industry, okay, there's a few people that get to be in front of the camera. There's many more behind the camera, and making the sausage. And so it's the same with games, like the kid that wins the Fortnite competition and has a $3 million payday that's bigger than the Masters and the US Open, that gets the headlines in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and everyone's like, wait, what? But around that one kid, there's like 100 jobs for people that are passionate about it and are maybe not quite at that level of getting to win it all, but can still work in the industry.
That's wonderful.
That's great. Thank you for that reminder. And so I just have to ask, what is your secret sauce? Like, how is the business model for the gaming industry unique? And why do you think that model has helped you be so successful in this industry?
Yeah. So in terms of the game industry, it really is built around the tastes of Gen Z, and now we could say Gen Alpha, which is like, 12-year-olds, the up and coming generation. I mean, it's a generation that likes interactivity. They like to push a button and have something happen. They're a little less content to sit back passively and watch that sort of content. They want to lean in, they want to lean forward, they want to engage, and they want to do. And that's what gaming is fundamentally, is what makes it different from every other form of media, is it's interactive and you're the protagonist and you do verbs in the game. That's what makes a game unique. And so I think in terms of high res, we were very early to embrace this idea of games as service, which means we don't just ship a product and we're done. We're always listening to the community and trying to take feedback and learn and deliver updates. And because you don't go to the store and buy it, because you download it, we could update the game very often. And that gave us this community-driven development approach. And that's what we try to bring now to Skillshot and everything else that we're doing, even with events. If it's the secret sauce, it's not being too in love with your own ideas, but working with the community to constantly shape and improve, and kind of that idea of getting 1% better every day with their feedback. And so that is the management approach that we tried to use at High Res and that we try to use with our current businesses, is listening and ultimately community first.
What has been the toughest hurdle you've had to overcome in your career? How did you navigate it? And what did you take away from the experience?
So, I would say there are many hurdles. Just before shipping any game or before any event, you get this dread in the pit of your stomach that it's not going to work. Every entrepreneur knows this feeling where one day you're on cloud 9 and you can't fail, and the next day you feel like, oh my gosh, we're doomed. And that's just a cycle that, again, a lot of entrepreneurs go through. I think I was fortunate to just learn from some great entrepreneurs before I completely jumped off the ledge on my own. And I saw that you need to be resilient and you need to be confident for your team, even when you're transparent with the team about risks. And so, and I think honestly, resiliency is something that gaming teaches, not teaching it over the head, but is just built into most video games. Any of us that have played any game, you fail and you fail again, and you learn by failing. And so you kind of embrace this idea of like a growth mindset, that it's not that I'm stuck and I'm bad, but that failing is part of the process of learning new information and like mastering this level and then getting a harder challenge and mastering that level. And so in a weird way, I think being a gamer helped me develop those resiliency skills for the process of building a business, which of course involves a lot of failure along the way.
Every person who's involved in creating these podcasts is a public relations professional. So naturally, we're curious to ask you a little bit about this area. Can you discuss the role of public relations or marketing in your business strategy and how it has affected your success?
Yeah, marketing is important for most businesses, certainly. And our current business of Skillshot and Ghost, I mean, we are effectively a marketing organization in terms of, we're building events, we're activating fans, but a lot of the way that we generate revenue is that we're working with a consumer or a business-to-business brand. They want to have exposure and relevancy, particularly business to consumer. They want to reach an audience that's hard to reach otherwise because they've cut the cord for cable and they're passionate about video games. So effectively, we are a marketing organization. We're driving that awareness for a partner that we're working with. So we think a lot about marketing. And I think broader than that, my perspective is that attention is really the most valuable resource, that anyone can give you. Most people, fortunately, not everybody, but in the US, a lot of people are able to cover their basic expenses and they could spend on more, but their most scarce resource is their time. What are they paying attention to? They're watching Netflix, they're going to a concert, they're watching a new Marvel film, or they're playing a video game. And so we're all in entertainment ultimately trying to capture a slice of attention, and we're somewhat all in the attention business. Netflix famously said, we compete and lose to the game Fortnite more than HBO. That was in a message to their shareholders. And so we're fortunate to be in an industry that's consuming a lot of attention, which is gaming, but we have to think about how do we stay relevant? Our brands, our events. Just because people are paying attention to gaming doesn't mean they're paying attention to our stuff. So we think a lot about it.
That's great. And I wanted to ask you too, what advice would you give someone looking to break into the gaming industry, especially during these rapidly changing times? Like, for example, education, internship opportunities, networking, anything else?
Yeah, it's an industry where you need to work hard. I mean, I would set those expectations first because candidly, like everyone's at a different place in terms of work-life balance and what's important to them. And I do think gaming is one of those areas where people are so passionate about it. It's kind of like music. They're going to gig whether they get paid or not. And if they can get paid, even better, but they really do it for the love of it. And for most people in gaming, it's the same thing. They're going to work on a game regardless. They can't help but work on a game. And so I think you need to have that fire in your belly for doing it, or there's honestly easier ways to earn a living. So you should just have some self-reflection on like, is there anything else I can do, or is this the thing? Because it is competitive. And then if you have that and it feels like a fit, the nice thing here in Georgia or, wherever folks are listening to this is there are these local communities that you can get involved with. Attend real world conferences where you're networking with independent developers. And the number one lesson is just make stuff. Like make a playable game. It could be a board game. It could be a card game. It could be a simple video game, but actually put stuff out there and get feedback and make sure that you enjoy that process.
That's really sound advice. I never thought about that.
Great advice.
Making something. Yeah. I mean, we all do what we do because we love it. I mean, it's the old mantra of, if you do what you love, it'll never feel like work, right?
Yes.
So in your opinion, Todd, what are some of the innovative technologies that are shaping the future of the gaming and esports worlds?
There's a lot. There's always something new. I would say right now, the two biggest conversation topics, one, no surprise, is AI, in the same way it's affecting film and everything else. And so very specifically, there are now AI tools that are starting to do some of the work that humans would typically do in the game development pipeline and process. And it's still somewhat of a controversial issue in the industry. Different studios are taking different positions on that, but it's going to be impactful one way or the other, right? And so like probably the specific function where that's being looked at is something called concept art, where you're at the very beginning and you want to develop some characters. What are the playable characters going to look like for this particular new IP? And typically that would be an artist that would do that job. And now there might be a combination of an artist and some AI. And again, how the industry comes down on what is acceptable or not is still very fluid. So it's an active conversation. So that's AI. The second is something called user-generated content. And basically, where in the very old days, you'd have to write everything from scratch. And then some development tools like Epic's Unreal Engine and Unity came about. Well, now you can make games within games. So Roblox, a very popular game, Fortnite, even Minecraft. These are game environments that are becoming distribution platforms in themselves. And a very small team or an individual creator can make a game inside that game. And that's, I think, going to be a trend that we're just going to see. It's already quite large, but it's going to grow over the next few years.
And is that part of, you'll hear about concerts in Fortnite or things of this nature? Is that part of user-generated content also?
It is. Some of those concerts are done by the primary, by Epic Games, who owns Fortnite. But over time, in both Roblox and Fortnite, you're seeing concerts done by third parties, or you're seeing entire branded integrations or games inside those universes.
Right. Fascinating.
So true. So if we had a backstage pass to your life, what would we see on your plate right now? And what would we see in the pipeline?
You would be overwhelmed, I think, seeing what's in my head, unfortunately.
You're very busy. Very busy.
We're spinning a lot of plates because we're really trying to build, of course, a successful company, but we're trying to build an ecosystem. So, what you would see is us looking at the structure of traditional sports and what everyone takes for granted and looking to bring that into gaming and esports. So we did that with high school esports, where 5 years ago we kind of helped have the state of Georgia and the Georgia High School Association accept esports played for a varsity letter. We're doing that with collegiate. We're doing that with youth leagues. We're doing that at the professional level. And we're doing that bringing the world's biggest events to this market, actually, including DreamHack and many other large events. So what you would see is something that looks like a map of traditional sports and all the stakeholders in there, and trying to work either directly with our company or with trusted partners and fill that in so that the ecosystem is being developed.
Wow. That's amazing. Our final questions we like to call the Blitz, aka lightning round. Are you ready?
Bring it.
Great. What's your favorite movie or TV show?
I like an underdog story like Rocky. I'm also, the movie I recommend more than any other one, because most people haven't seen it, is a movie called Sing Street by an Irish director. And if you grew up liking 80s music, it's 11 out of 10. And if you never listened to 80s music, it's a 10 out of 10. I love that movie.
Wow.
That's fantastic. So the soundtrack
is original music, but it's derived from 80s music. And again, you just have to see the movie. Again, it appeals to me in terms of like creating something from nothing. And I like a good musical also, and it happens to be one.
That's great.
Oh. Okay. So favorite music venue?
Favorite music venue? What's that place at Little Five Points that I always see? The Connells. So my favorite band is the Connells, which is a band that kind of has an REM sound, but they're from Raleigh, North Carolina, where I grew up. Variety Playhouse. And mainly because that's where I've seen the Connells the most times, I'm going to say Variety Playhouse because they're my favorite band.
It's a good one.
Yeah, that is good. And I have to ask, what's your favorite video game?
Well, besides this one, which is, in my view, the best video game of all time, but it's a pretty small group that feels that way. The one that we didn't make that I really enjoy is a game called BioShock that gamers will know. It does a really good job telling a story, but telling the story through the environment and set design, not like you're reading or you're hearing something, but how the environment is crafted conveys a really interesting universe and story.
And what about your favorite hobby? And you can't say gaming. We already know
wow. My favorite hobby that's not gaming. Well, I do like board games. Does that count? So in this cabinet behind me, there's board games. And beyond that, my foot's kind of bothering me, but I also like running. So I do like to get out and move every once in a while. And so running, do I enjoy it? It's very effective at, keeping me fit with only a little bit of time. So we'll say running also.
That's great. And what's the last thing that you read?
The last fiction book that I read is, I strongly recommend. It happens to be video game themed, but you don't have to be a video game fan. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And it's a very excellent fiction book. And the last nonfiction book that I read is called Atomic Habits. And it's about how it gives you a recipe for developing good habits and dropping bad habits. And it's very specific and actionable. It's not kind of fuzzy. It's very, very specific. So I recommend both of those.
Interesting.
Great.
Favorite restaurant?
So I live in Brookhaven near Buford Highway, and I love the ethnic food on Buford Highway. So I have many, but if I had to pick one, I like Vietnamese pho soup, which is like the beef broth pho soup. And specifically, the best one is Dai Lai number 2, which is right on the corner of Buford Highway and Dresden. And it's awesome.
Ooh, I haven't been to that one yet.
Yeah,
it's
that
good.
Sounds delicious. What's your favorite thing about Atlanta, or what makes Atlanta special?
What makes Atlanta special is there is truly a spirit of cooperation and collaboration here. People are real, and they generally are supportive of one another. So I think, Southern hospitality is a real thing. And compared to other entertainment markets where I've been, people are just more real and more supportive.
And what would people be surprised to know about you?
So I'm not a big traditional sports player, but I am a pretty wicked table tennis player. So I do enjoy a good game of table tennis. And because I was here in Atlanta, when we hosted the Olympics, I also was scorekeeper for table tennis at the Olympic level, which for a geek like me, was pretty
amazing.
Cool. I wasn't like a judge. I was just literally flipping the numbers, but that meant I was right there on the side of like the gold medal match, which I was pretty psyched about.
That's fantastic.
Fun, right?
So that's all the Showbiz Intel we have for you today. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast at GEPRA.net/podcast and follow us on social media. Special thanks to our wonderful guest, Todd Harris, CEO of Skillshot Media and Ghost Gaming. Todd also serves as chair of the United States Esports Federation, NASEF, and the Atlanta Esports Alliance, and he is also a co-founder of High Res Studios. Todd, thank you so much for joining with us today, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. We hope you have been entertained and inspired as much as we have.
Yes,
this was a lot of fun. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for all you do for our industry, Todd. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Showbiz and Tell, a podcast presented by the Georgia Entertainment Public Relations Alliance. I'm Melissa Sanders.
And I'm Elise Riley.
See you next time.
Bye.